Hello and welcome back to E-commerce Uncovered. I'm your host, Matt Lady. Today I'm joined with our guest, Ian Leslie. Ian works at Bolt. And Ian, what is your favorite thing about the 4-day work week that has recently changed
Man,
at
we're just
Bolt?
diving right. Yeah, man,
Yeah.
we're just diving right into it. Yeah, no, good to chat. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I think Ryan, our founder CEO, has done an amazing job of kind of communicating the 4-day work week not being, it's not like incredibly structured, right? It just it leaves you that variability to be like, okay, Friday I can no meetings, do what I want. Of course, like if I need to schedule something on a Friday, like I personally am going to. But if I also want to just say like, you know what, my morning is going to be doing the lawn or power washing or whatever. Like my daughter has a half day of every other Friday, and I could spend it taking her to lunch. Like I think that's the big piece, right? It's just like whether or not I think we're in such an odd place as a culture where um, we're not like our parents live to work to an extent, right? And like we're not. And I think like especially in the e-commerce space or tech space, it's really just become like this get the work done. I really don't care when you do it aspect. And the whole idea of a workday is just kind of is just foreign to a lot of us anyway. So for me, it's really just like, okay, I don't have to worry about Slack. I don't have to worry about email. And I'm just really setting my own schedule. And any meetings I want to take are the ones that I'm going to say yay or nay or initiate, right? So, like for instance, tomorrow, like yeah, I'm recording a podcast tomorrow, but I could have easily like there's no reason if I didn't want to, I don't have to. Like there's
Right,
no
right.
reason I didn't have to say yes. But yeah, I was like, okay, well, that's my one thing for Friday. I'll do it, and then I'll like I said, take my daughter to lunch. So yeah, I just
Yeah.
love the flexibility of it, and I love that it just kind of speaks to the larger conscious culture narrative that Ryan and Bolt talk about, and it's just really a small component of it, to be honest. Like I've talked about in the past, and not trying to ramble here, but like I think like there are lessons I've learned in just 90 days at Bolt that I wish I had when I was when I was 20, 30.
Yeah. So a
And
lot of the people listening, maybe in that 20 or 30 range, let's hear some of these things that you learned
yeah,
in
I
the
mean,
last
I
90
think like
days.
yeah, I mean, I think like one of the things is like Bolt promotes this, mechanism of feedback, which is like thanks for, wish that, and it's basically feedback that your manager provides you, and you also provide your manager once a month. So it's like, and it's scheduled. It's like we have Asana tasks to provide feedback, but
Yeah.
it's like basically it's like to my manager and then my manager to me, thanks for, and then going through that and then wish that. And then it doesn't have to be like, the wish that doesn't necessarily have to be incredibly criticism or anything, but just really like wish that you keep doing what you're doing, sometimes also. But really, I think like we have this, or I've been a professional now for, 21 years or, post college is like, I know I am always like wondering like, well, where do I stack up? Where do I rank? Like, am I doing what I need to do? And like, this really takes that guesswork out of it. It's like, thanks for, or, and wish that. And really just kind of, validates the work you've done and then lets you know like where you stand or where you potentially need to kind of expand. So, I think stuff like that I think is just critical. And I even like love how, we utilize Asana, here and just like in terms of, PSAs, and then like what's something that needs to be addressable, and then like what's an agreement, and like if you make an agreement, like live up to it, sort of thing. And I just really, yeah, I mean, it's just really, like I said, it's been pretty incredible that 90 days. Definitely some professional lessons I've learned that, like I said, I wish I had 20 years ago. Though there
Awesome.
was no Asana 20 years ago.
Yeah. No Asana, but thanks for wish that. Awesome. That's a cool little simple framework. Yeah, I like that. Okay,
Yeah.
so how Ian, like real quick, like what do you do at Bolt, and what do you like? what's your favorite part of your job, and then let's keep diving into
Yeah,
that
yeah,
after.
sure. So obviously, so I came from the merchant side. I was with Industry West for 6 years, driving e-commerce for, or really across all marketing, but we're really focusing on e-com for Industry West, which is a furniture company based out of Florida and has a showroom in New York. Prior to that, I was with Savannah College of Art and Design, where I was leading their digital marketing team to recruit, high school students. Just getting high school students to raise their hand and say, I'd like to attend SCAD. And that was like the lead gen, demand gen function that I did there. And then moving to Bolt, was my first foray into tech, SaaS, and that side of it. And my role at Bolt is I'm in retail advocacy. So really trying to tell merchant stories, evangelize on behalf of our merchants, support our merchants, but then also evangelize on behalf of our merchants internally and be like a merchant voice as we build out the product roadmap and even in product marketing. Are we talking in terms and phrases that the average merchant will understand, whether it's enterprise or SMB or someone in big commerce who's in that pre-$1 million kind of range. So just making sure we talk to them in plain English that they understand. And then, just evangelizing on behalf of Bolt as well and what we're trying to build, and being a talking head to an extent. So and my favorite part, I think, is I think making those connections with the merchants and being able to understand like where they're succeeding and where they where their pay points are, and then also just being kind of behind the curtain on the product roadmap and seeing what's coming down the pike and having access to that and seeing how it's a lot of things are going to change the checkout game. I think are really exciting. So I'm really enjoying it.
So what's the biggest difference from CMO role at Industry West for 6 years to first 90 days at Bolt, where it's not directly product? You're not pushing and selling furniture anymore. You're helping tell these stories with these merchants about Bolt, which is
Sure.
Simply put, and you can explain it better, is a accelerated checkout tool.
Yeah.
And you can. So what's the biggest difference?
I mean, I think the biggest change is not having my fingers in every pie or pot. So I mean, I think like I know we were just talking like you really want to focus on the SMB side and probably like the S in the SMB side. And like I think even at Industry West as CMO, like when you're CMO, you're de facto CTO, you're de facto e-commerce director, at a company that is in that $0 to $50 million range, your CMO really has to have a full understanding of not only just marketing tactics but also like full on tech stack from e-com all the way to fulfillment. And so I think not being part of every segment of that has been the biggest change, and really just being like, okay, here's my swim lane, here's what my goals are, and not having to worry about really everything has been a big change for me. What was the second part of the question? But I mean, I know you asked a little bit about unpacking what Bolt is. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously for working with Bolt, I mean, Bolt truly is a checkout OS, and I think we get lumped into some other kind of segments and with some other competitors that are truly apples to oranges. But I think like what I love, yes, there's one click checkout. Yes, there's the whole network effect as we bring more merchants on and as more consumers start to use Bolt. Right, that network effect of being able to go from site to site, click out with just your email or your cell phone grows and is huge. But I think like for the merchants, like Bolt is like is basically helping their dev and product roadmap grow, or exponentially increase the speed of which they're able to bring things on, whether it's an APM or whether it's buy now pay later or whether it's fraud or whether it's even abandoned cart. So like Bolt offers like really when you add Bolt, like automatically you're given the ability to plug Affirm it, plug Apple Pay in, plug Amazon Pay in without kind of having to do like another round of dev work. Additionally, there's a lot of fraud measures. Additionally, um, there is abandoned cart flow. Additionally, there's like merchant side analytics where that you would used to have to rely on like a Welt Pixel or Google Analytics hack to see like where customers are dropping within the cart process. So whereas like I used to say that like that was all value add to the beautiful checkout and to the one click checkout process, I actually think like maybe beautiful checkout is the value add to all this other stuff, right? Because like I think like Bolt truly is a checkout operating system, and I think or a cart, checkout OS for sure. And whereas I think a lot of other competitors are just a cart replacement. So definitely a difference there. But yeah, I love it. I think the product roadmap is amazing. I think like what's coming down the pike is amazing. I think the dedication of the team and the leadership is amazing. And yeah, excited to be part of it.
Sweet. So, what is something that you have been able to carry over from your past, and what is let's start there. Like, what's one transferable like skill or task or something that you've
Sure.
Brought over from your past jobs, and then I'll follow up.
Yeah, I think one thing is definitely like my interactions with systems integrators and my integration, my understanding of integrations of like the entire tech stack and the entire process for an SMB. So like understanding that the checkout is only a portion of just a small portion of the entire process. Like, so, and I think everyone understands that. Like, people know that like a website isn't an island, but still like to actually have like 6 years of background in that and understanding like how inventory flows back and forth between website and ERP and how, the orders flow back and forth and just all the complexities of tax and shipping and everything. And so just being able to bring that to the table and have those conversations internally. And as we go to market with different products and across different platforms, just bringing that understanding and being able to work with our team to something that they, we may add something to the product that they just see as like a small, afterthought. And I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. Like that would be amazing for merchants. Like we need to promote that more on the merchant side. Like that's definitely value to them. So, I think just bringing that, that background and bringing that experience has been helpful.
Yeah. So even though you're quote newer to the tech and SaaS as a job, you're not new to the industry. So you bring all that experience and knowledge with you to be able to communicate better between the dev, the designers, and the store merchants, right?
Right. Yeah. Phil, I know Phil Jackson. He and I did a great conversation about a year ago of like, the skill set of the modern CMO. And I think like that's like we just talked about is like the modern CMO has to understand the entire tech stack and the entire life cycle of not just the buyer but the order, and being able to bring that history and that background is where I guess I provide value at.
Yeah, awesome. So then what's been the like biggest challenge or biggest hurdle? What's been something that's been difficult so far in your first 90 days here at Bolt that you didn't foresee coming?
Yeah,
potentially.
I think to be completely transparent, and I think it's just been the mental adjustment of not being responsible for 50% of the business day to day, and then also the detox of not I used to see literally every e-commerce order come through on my phone, and not having that happen anymore. So that's been a change. I think it's been a healthy mental change for sure. So yeah, it's just been different, going from a bootstrap company to one, that is backed financially and has raised, has just been, and even to the extent of like when you're working with a bootstrap company, there's like you just want to you take it upon yourself to duct tape and crazy glue, where you can and where you feel like you need to. and just that mindset and shift in mindset of like, oh, we actually, there's maybe a little bit more resources than I'm used to, and I can actually farm this out or ask for help or whatever. So I think that's been a change, and something definitely I've had to get used to.
Yeah, awesome. That makes a lot of sense, going from bootstrap to a larger team with a larger funding like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, wanted to kind of double tap into that modern CMO and trying to extract the most important bits for early founders. Like, what is the most important thing for early founders to keep in mind that they can't afford to hire a CMO because they're everything. They're everything right now. So, what are a few of the most important things you would kind of consider wanting to tell an early stage founder?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think, gosh, there's so many. There's so many different places you can go with it now, and I think it's so complex now, especially as the past 6 months have seen such differences in terms of how iOS updates and privacy issues and quote unquote cookie apocalypse coming next year. So I think gosh, I don't know. I don't know what everything is so important, right? I think having a clear voice and really being able to define that from day one. I think being just understanding, I guess looking at it more from the marketing perspective. I think I've always, and this goes back a decade now, and it's nothing new, but it's don't feel like you have to dive into all channels, right? It's figuring out what the proper channels are for you. And I think this is a running joke on social media, right? On Twitter, is that social media managers basically have a new channel pop up once a week that they have to account for, or a change in Twitter or a change in TikTok. Facebook may make sense for some, and Twitter may make sense for some, or TikTok may make sense for some. I don't think it's everything to everyone all the time. So I think really truly understanding your demographic, who you're going after, and then what the proper channels to reach them on is critical. I think really advertising and marketing are so different based on the vertical and based on the category. And I think a bootstrap company versus a venture-backed company is going to be so different, because you hear a lot about why are people figuring about iOS, and why are people pivoting from Facebook and Instagram to Google when they should really just be focusing on building their own media arm or their own whatever. It's not that easy. It's not that easy for everyone just to build their own media arm or build their own multi-million person following or 100,000 person following. So I think it's really there are some tried and trues, right? Good email marketing, good nurture campaigns. I think SMS, obviously, diving into SMS, and just getting the basics right. I think there are so many companies out there that if you took a look at their back end and their conversion pixels aren't firing properly, or their data just is a little off, or they're not collecting email addresses, whatever. It's I think so many just need to get the basics right, and then from there, as you have time and runway, then expand on the rest.
So getting the basics down, getting the email set up, getting your data right, one channel, maybe two at the start, really really focusing in on not spreading yourself too thin because you're a solo founder. That makes sense. Okay. So what eventually a lot of founders will get to a point where they hire a first marketer or a head of growth or CMO, whatever this the appropriate role and title is. What should people be looking for in that first hire? If they're not, say they're not they don't have a marketing background.
Sure. I think you want someone who's going to operate, right? You want an operator. I think I've talked a lot about this recently with a mentor of mine. Is operators are running are running our economy. So someone who's not like that first hire needs to be someone who's able to get in the weeds and actually do the work. So I think a lot of time, like, yeah, some of your C levels or your founders are going to sign off on budget and sign off on contracts, but it's like your operators, and I talked about this within Bolt too. Like, as a CMO, when I brought Bolt online, like I was CMO, but I was also like the day-to-day operator of the e-commerce website, right? Like I was the one making that decision and recommending it. So I mean, I think it's find someone who's an operator. I also think like some of your best marketers are going to be people who have just are very strategic and conceptual thinkers. Like think about the larger picture and really are asking like, okay, aren't going like willy nilly on tasks, but are really asking like, what's the problem we're solving for? And then two are people who are like really good QA UAT people. Like I've kind of keep going back to that in talking to people is like, when I was coming up, like I was a journalist, and then I was a jack of all kind of social media marketer. And then in that role, like I didn't know how to run a dev team. I didn't know like really much about how to run a digital marketing team. But like when I looked at a website and I looked at like something that we were looking to launch, I was like, well, where's the meta title? Where's the meta description? Like, why is it? Why isn't this redirect working? Like, why isn't this link working? And like someone who's able to kind of go through that, you like knows like what's wrong, may not know how to fix it, but knows that it's not right is like, think like really a critical component to that first hire.
Yeah. So identifying problems, but then not just solving it right away. It's you have such limited resources and budget and time that you have to prioritize which problems to solve. So
sure. And I often say like even when I was with Industry West, like there were things I wanted to achieve that I was like, I know this. Like, I don't know how to do this, but I know it's possible. Like I often knew I was asking for things that were like doable. I just didn't know how to do them technically myself. So like, and then I think that came up like as we were trying to implement Salesforce or implement whatever. It was just like I know this isn't like a crazy ask. I just don't know how to do it. So I think having that kind of skill set of like, I know what I want, but I'm also willing to recognize I don't know what I don't know.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So you have this person who's an operator. They are problem solver. They are boots on the ground and like doing things day to day, and while keeping a high level overview. What compensation? What position? Like what would you think is fair for like or a good starting point for either head of growth or CMO or VP? I know these are all very different and very widely across brands. So just pick one and give a little bit of context about it. And would love to just try to get people in the right frame of mind if they are getting to this point ready to hire.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously a very broad question and conversation to be had. I mean, I think it obviously depends on the category, on the vertical, on the what the company's doing top line wise. I mean, I think do you bring on a CMO right away? Like, I definitely don't think so. Like, I think your average company is like that's in the SMB, doing less than $1 million is looking for like director of growth or director of e-commerce or director of digital commerce, whatever we want to call it. So, or senior director. Like we're not. I don't think you're looking to bring on a VP CMO when you're in that sub $1 million range by any means. I don't know compensation wise.
It's kind of tough.
That's a tough one. I mean, I think what I will say, like, I'm going to skirt the compensation issue or question.
Cool.
But what I will say is, like, don't be, if you're hiring, like, don't, I do think, like, we're in a more, especially now COVID and everything, like, right, this is a more remote employment time than ever. So, I mean, I think don't be, don't cut your nose to spite your face in terms of hiring, I think you have to hire in like locally or someone that's going to be in the office with you every day. And don't, I guess on the other side, don't be scared to, like, I think this opens more people up more to the entrepreneurial opportunity. It's like you could be in a very small town in the USA with a great idea and a great product, but maybe not the right people around you to implement it. That's okay. Like I live in a tiny town in coastal South Carolina, and I've been able to work from here, like, do this e-com D2C job for the past, 7 years from here. So I think that's huge. So I mean, I think you utilize that opportunity to say like, okay, I can do this. I can even fulfillment. Like if you're less than $1 million, like fulfillment's happening out of your house, right, or a small space, maybe the garage. So like that's okay. And then the first employee or the second employee, like they could be anywhere. Like really doesn't really matter. So I think utilize that opportunity.
Yeah, no, I my question was a little tough, so I'm glad you answered it with grace and got a good answer out of you. Okay, so I just want to ask you because I brought it up before we started the show. In-house versus agency. On D2C Twitter the last few weeks, there's been a little uproar up and back about agencies are bad, agencies are good, in-house only, in-house only this. Like, where do we start to define this challenge and problem, and how do we break it down?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely. Again, I think it depends on so much. Like, I think it depends on what your budget is, what you're willing to, what risk you're willing to swallow on both ends. So, like, for instance, let's talk about like you're running a Magento store, for instance. Like, there are agencies there are a lot of agencies that are having a hard time finding Magento devs. So, good luck trying to build your own in-house Magento team with enough redundancy for when they inevitably leave. So like that's a huge issue. So like I was, for Magento, I think like that's why you're seeing mostly, SIs taking on Magento sites and not a lot of in-house dev. Now like a little bit less pain point there, but similar, like on the media buy side, like, yeah, you can find someone, but like, are they going to have enough expertise and enough talent across all these channels to justify that in-house spend? And what if they leave? Like what do you do like when they leave, like, and you're 6 months without that position, which is always a scary, it's scary. So I mean, I think that being said, like I've often sided on, like, I've worked with a lot of agencies both on the digital media side or media buy side and then the development side. But I've also not been afraid to pivot quickly if it wasn't working out with those agencies. So like when I was at Industry West, I think we had like 5 different dev agencies in my first 4 years. And then like the last 2 years, like once I found the one I liked, like I loved them. Like it was perfect and we did so much work with them. And so like, so I mean, I think it's like finding the right fit. So I mean, again, I don't think there's no one size fits all solution. I think it's like what's your level of what's your appetite for risk and spend. I mean, agencies are expensive, but I also think like if you find the right one, like you're gonna make there's value there. You should see lift from that relationship.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I was hoping for a spicy take, but you provided an excellent answer. That it depends, and risk is a good variable, I think, to clarify there. And so to make it really clear, you're saying in-house is more risk for a bootstrap budget, technically?
I mean, I think it's risky in terms of, I think it depends on your tech stack. And I think it depends on, but I guess my fear always with in-house was there's a finite number of employees you're going to be able to hire, and what are you going to do when that employee leaves, particularly on the dev side. Like when you're farming out your dev, like if you have the right agency, like at the absolute least, that you're guaranteed to have like emergency on call for that time the site goes down at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, what happens when your internal dev leaves for greener pastures and you don't have anyone for 3 months and the site goes down and you don't know? Like, I know how to use MailChimp and I know how to use Klaviyo, but I have no idea what to do when my website goes down. So, so I mean, I think that's a risky. I always felt that was a risky proposition for me. Now that being said, like Shopify, like the Shopifyization of e-commerce has made that a little less riskier. So I mean, I think again, it depends on your tech stack. It depends on your level of comfortability with who you have on staff and how you are as a founder. But I mean, I think as you start to get toward I think when you're in when you're out of the S and more into the M of the SMB side, and you are big enough where you're starting to grow a team, but not big enough to really kind of go full bore into building your own building an in-house agency, where you're able to afford certain levels of redundancy in the staffing. That it's a tricky place to be in, and one that always scared me.
Got it. Okay. Let's narrow back into small business and marketing and early stage founders. So you have your first product, you launch, you've been running your brand for a year or two, you've got some traction, you made a few $100,000 in revenue lifetime. You're introducing a new product. It's second product. You're expanding your collection, or a whole new set of SKUs, right? Like, how would you coach a first-time founder doing a new product launch? Like, what do you wish you knew 21 years ago on how to launch a product?
Yeah, I mean, I think if that new product launch piece, like to your point, if this is your second product, you have some sort of built-up audience. I think the whole drop culture is something that I was late to adopt as a merchant. I think it's really critical. So I think build up anticipation, tease it out, do something fun to create anticipation, and then create FOMO on the back end. So do maybe as a first time, do a limited run, some sort of and maybe even some community engagement in terms of input on the product, sourcing, colors, etc. But something to build community engagement, something to build anticipations, and then FOMO on the actual back end. So I think that's huge, and I think as that's made easier if you have that built-in audience from establishing your first product in your first line. So I'm going to think, I think there's something to that, and I think especially now as that's been built upon even more, is that anticipation and fear of missing out. Do something more limited will definitely help move the meter.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to note for bootstrap founders that are more budget conscious and budget friendly. Maybe I don't want to purchase 10,000 units of this new product right away, right? Like maybe that's really expensive for them, and there's no guarantee of working. So maybe start on a limited drop, test out a new product, and then roll it out bigger if it works out. I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm kind of just jumping around to different areas to try to help early founders with their marketing. I kind of want to go back to that point of you mentioned earlier about the iOS and these changes, and just build a media arm of this advice sometimes comes out. Like, okay, maybe we can't build a full media arm, but what do you think is actually one baby step towards start building that media arm for your own brand? Like, what's that first baby step?
Yeah, I mean, I do think content marketing is huge and critical, right? So I mean, I think developing a voice, developing a point of view. And I think like blog content, SEO rich content, and something that is above and beyond just beating people over the head with a product, like I think is a critical component of any brand. I do think like there is, I think you have to account for the fact that there are people who want to feel connectivity to a brand. And I think there are also people who are just don't care about that, or just going to buy something they think is pretty and functional. So, but I do think like, especially, today in a D2C space, in the D2C world, where people want a bit more out of their brands than just, 5,000 fake reviews, or, like, I think like, yeah, I think content marketing is huge. I think like if you look at, so much of the health tech stuff I actually just heard this term this morning. Orchid did a podcast like the biohack culture, right? Like I think if you look at like Whoop and U-Ring and Eight Sleep, like they do an amazing job of like not just beating you head over with the product, but also like providing like content that speaks to what you're trying to achieve through the use of their product. So I mean, I think it's like super important, right? But at the same time, like while Eight Sleep does that, they're also beating you over the head with like a ton of retargeting.
So much.
Like, right? Like there's so many, it's not like they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater and saying we're just going to do content marketing and not drive ads at all, or run ads at all. But so I mean, I think there's it's multiple prongs or multiple spokes to the wheel. So I mean, I think like yeah, like establish a point of view, establish a voice, and then like yeah, generate a ton of content. Like it's you never know when like that one content piece is going to hit and just drum up tons of organic reach and just really resonate with people. So I mean, I think that's the first step is just start generating some good content.
Yeah, like try like first step, maybe not a blog post a week. Just try one blog post.
Yeah, exactly.
Like start literally so small. Just start with the minimum viable content piece, right? Okay. So take a voice, generate content, put it out, listen, and actually get feedback about it and iterate. And don't just keep blasting out content without hearing and seeing how it works. There's so much talk about community and this own channels and owning your audience. How can merchants and store owners and early stage founders build or help shape the community that is either naturally being built by their customers or something that they need to help out in forming that community?
Yeah. I think it goes back to channel. Is like what's the proper channel for the community? Is it Twitter? Is it Instagram? Is it Discord? Is it Slack? Is it where do you want them to have that conversation? What is the function of the community? Like, do you really need them to have back and forth? Is it communication, or is it one way? Is it two way? Is it truly community where you're is it like you look at community different from the perspective of community around a clothing brand versus community around CrossFit or Noble or like whereas they're actually like gathering and getting together. So I mean, it of course depends on the vertical and it depends on the category, but I mean, I think really figuring out like, okay, what is the purpose? Is the community really me trying to empower my customers to evangelize on my behalf? And so basically like just providing them with great content, or like, so for, again, going back to like biohackery, like Eight Sleep, like that community I would imagine would be like around, yes, them maybe talking to each other to an extent in terms of health metrics and that sort of thing, and sharing tips. But I think a lot of it is like the community is when someone sees their sleep improve and success of health in their own life, like how is Eight Sleep then empowering them to evangelize on the brand's behalf? So maybe it's not simply just sharing the website, but sharing, again, going back to sharing content within the website, a blog post, whatever. I think a lot about the community of, I like take again. I don't have a Loop. I have a U-Ring, but you take Loop and they've built up this community where people can share each other's metrics and see like how, like what their resting heart rate is and what their HRV is. And I know like someone, I think maybe Jonathan Poma like tweeted about how like he saw something on his friend's Loop metrics and concerned him and like pinged him and was like ended up the guy was like yeah he was having a health issue. So I mean I think like it definitely obviously depends on the product and the vertical, but I think like again figure out like what is the goal of the community, and then what are the like what is again is it like is it one way, is it two way, or is it truly like is it in real life, is it like how is that, where do you want that community to happen, and then create the tools to foster it.
So just like we mentioned earlier, don't just create a community to create a community. Identify the problem you're solving for the community. Is it for you and your VIP customers, and to keep them in the loop and to get feedback, product testing, and ideas? Or is it more like outbound and it's brand evangelism and customer advocacy? So it's really interesting to know what problem you're trying to solve for with your community. That's good to know. Good questions to ask yourself.
Right.
What is one of, let's start to wind down, but one of the last questions I have for you is, what is one of the most overlooked but most important things about a small e-commerce business? That I know is very broad and it is very very difficult, so I'm going to refine it a little bit more. So what do you think is one of the things that works early on, but as you grow past $1 million, $2 million in revenue a year, that needs to change? Like, what's the biggest thing that founders get stuck on? Like, operators run into trouble as they grow and scale. Like, is it tactical thing? Is it more like systems and culture and hiring? Like, is it,
Sure.
Yeah,
I think that's, I think systems is a good point. Like, I think, as you mentioned systems, I think like, I think what you find is there's like, you're willing to hack at things when you're small, but they'll largely, at some point you keep hacking, and then like those systems aren't sustainable. So I think, you want things to be as like, you want there to be a logic and programmatic aspect to everything you do. And so whether like, I think like, okay, so let's say you have one website and you have like 5 SKUs on that site, and then you decide to launch a sister brand, and that's on a different site, and maybe it's even on a different CMS, and so the first site, those orders are automatically going into your ERP, but the second site you're having to manually place those orders into the ERP and manually update stock and whatever. And then like, okay, that's good for the first year, but in the second year it's like, oh well, now I have 20 SKUs, I have 30 SKUs, and I have 5,000 units, and like, how am I gonna manually run all this? So I do think like sooner than later, think about how you're programmatically managing your systems, and that there's a logic to everything you're doing, and to, I would say, if as you're able, like, spend the extra dollars, the few extra bucks to create logic and to create something that is more automatic and programmatic and not manually dependent.
Scalable, sustainable. We want the business to keep running while we go to sleep, Like, we want to keep being able to accept orders overnight and have it keep running smoothly. That makes a lot of sense. Ian, any last thoughts? Anything we didn't get to? Any last hot takes before we slowly get out here?
Any hot takes, man? I don't know. I've got a lot of hot takes on D2C. I don't know. I don't know. I think I do think, like, here's my hot take. Is I've talked about this a lot. Is if you're a founder, if you're starting up in e-commerce and D2C, and you kind of get into that ecosphere of, especially on Twitter, like, do what's right for you. I think so much of what we talk about on Twitter is so much inside baseball, and is so much sausage being made, and is so much things that, like, I told my wife the other day, like, I talked to her about something that was happening on Twitter, and I said, Carolyn, like, what I'm telling you about, maybe 100,000 people in this country actually care about. Like, like, so I'm going to think, like, take a step back and don't be bullied by people who, maybe think like they know better or have done better. Do what's right for you, what's right for your customer base, your customers. And at the end of the day, like I said, a lot of this is such inside baseball. Like, if you're seeing something work for you, just double down on it.
Got it. I like it. I get lost in the sauce too sometimes, especially a sub niche in e-commerce of just media buying. Like, that's a whole nother thing. It's like even less people care about that, right?
Yeah, right.
So it's really cool. Okay, like the hot take. Ian, where can people find you? Where do you want to point them to if they have questions, they want to learn more about Bolt?
Sure. Yeah, appreciate it. So obviously at Bolt, just invite people to go to bolt.com. Learn everything they need about there. We're actually about to launch a really awesome new merchant section where we highlight our merchants, and it's a bit more of a shoppable experience, which is really exciting. And then for me personally, mostly on the Twitters, I am at IR Leslie, so at IRLESLIE. And yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your time, man. You guys can find Ian, go talk to him, go check out Bolt. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next episode.